The balance of power in the world has shifted so much since the start of this SMO.
Yeah.
Maybe can you talk about that? How would you assess the current balance of power in the world right now? Is it? It seems like everything is moving, consolidating towards the BRICS global South.
Mhm.
And it's just NATO is being left alone, isolated, and all of a sudden, we have Russia we're seeing with the very advanced weaponry being able to produce in mass. We see this
Right.
alliance where North Korea actually, surprise, surprise, I wasn't even aware it was a nuclear power and actually has some pretty impressive military technology. They're
Hmm.
dirt poor and their people are suffering,
Yeah.
but
Right.
they actually can do some damage. And same thing with Iran. What I've learned over the past year, just speaking with you, it's just like, wow, Iran is really advanced. And of course, we know about China. You've been there 10 years. Its productive capacity, it's incredible. So to me, it seems like it's just clear that the balance of power is tilted very, very heavily in the favor of the new world order that's being the new
Uh-huh. The
Russia
multipolar world.
multipolar order, that
Right.
the non-NATO US order.
Right. Yeah. So
um,
I mean, that's the whole point of it, is that it's not hegemonic. There's not one country that is aiming to dominate. It's not like, okay, well, we're going to knock the U.S. off its roost, and now the new hegemon is going to be China or Russia, or the two of them. No, the whole idea of a multipolar world order is that, yeah, there is no hegemon. There are different civilizations and sovereign states, and they're free to pursue their own um, avenues of development, right? Both, whether it's you're talking about culture or economics, or whatever. Um, and yeah, that's the multipolar world that's envisioned, and it seems like, yeah, it's certainly in the last few years we've taken some very, um, say, significant strides towards achieving, that ideal, that of bringing
mm,
about the new multipolar world. Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, you can see there's a real obvious shift in economics, and then economics in the end, you know, tends to be the deciding factor, because everything else, not everything, but a lot of things are built on that. Particular uh, military capabilities are to a great extent dependent on economic capabilities, right? And you can
mm,
see a shift now, like the G7, which used to be each G7 meeting used to be a real big deal, because these were the seven leading economies of the world. That this was at one time that was more or less true. Um, but now they represent less than 10% of the world economy, and the BRICS members account for quite a bit more than that. Um, so there has been a shift, obviously. Well, if we look at the top, we were talking about the World Bank study, right, not too long ago, that got a lot of people riled up. Well, the largest economy in PPP terms, which is the real way to measure an economy, is China, and then that's followed by the U.S. But then, okay, we have number three is India, and then
mm,
number four is Russia.
right.
So,
So the
of the
top
top
three,
four, three of the four
right?
are in BRICS.
Yeah, right. Three out of the four are in BRICS, right?
Right. And then, I think that even that, like, looking at, for example, GDP and PPP terms, yeah, that's important, but it still doesn't capture the whole reality. And, we're
Mm,
seeing that in the course of this SMO, right? Um, I've been surprised, and other people. I was just hearing that actually Scott Ritter was just saying the other day that he was sure, like that, that NATO would start cranking out a huge amount of weapons, and that if the Russians didn't achieve a lightning victory, it would be curtains for the Russians, because the economies of the West, the combined economic power of the United States and Europe was just so much greater than Russia. How could Russia actually outlast them? And we've seen, though, that that actually that, okay, yeah, maybe if you're even in looking at PP terms, if you add up all those economies, there's a lot more economic power, but they don't seem to be able to produce the things they need when they need them. When a
mm,
conflict breaks out, there's an effort. they're beginning to ramp up, but they're so far behind that it looks like they're never going to catch up with the Russians.
Hmm.
Um, and
Yeah,
then yeah, and then just take that, like the Russians are beating them single-handedly, and then in terms of military production, and then just take that and multiply it by 100 when you're talking about China. So
hmm
yeah, there is really a definite shift, and then okay, just go. Let's set aside economics and military power. There's also just there's political allegiances and popular opinion. At the outbreak of the SMO, 141 states actually voted to condemn Russia, and there was a very strong condemnation. Like the wording of the resolution, the UN resolution, was quite severe. And then, but look at where we are now. The great majority of those 141 states have drifted away from that position, and they're doing business with Russia. When they had the recent so-called peace conference in Switzerland, right? They only got 77, or it's actually 76 states to vote, and it was a watered-down version. It was actually just a completely ridiculous version. It was about abduction of children and the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. I would say, well, the first one is like just actually name one family that's missing a child. Nobody can. This is just a pure abstraction. I mean, it's just not. It doesn't exist. There are no children that were actually abducted from unwilling parents. And then, okay, you talk about the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. They demand that the Russians return it. You say maybe you should put a little, like an added requirement that, and the Ukrainians will promise to stop shelling it. Actually, very recently, I think actually just today, they actually destroyed some sort of radiation detection facility right outside that plant. I mean, so anyway, these were this kind of off on a tangent here, but these were part of this sort of silly watered down version, which ended up only getting 76 votes. It wasn't the severe condemnation, and they can only get about half of the amount of support that they have initially. And clearly, a lot of those people don't even really, they're going along with it because they feel like they got to go along with it and maintain good relations with the U.S. I think the true believers are actually just pretty much now the NATO states, and that when you go out behind that, most people are looking at that, and especially after this Gaza war, they don't feel any outrage. They started to understand, what the Russian position is, and they don't see any reason why they shouldn't maintain friendly relations with Russia. This is, again, this is a major shift. It's certainly a shift in popular opinion, but it's also, I think, it's deeper than that because there was a concerted and continues to be a concerted effort to first of all, to destroy the Russian economy and to isolate Russia. And it's just, this has fallen. It's been such an utter failure. I mean, it should be. The rest of the world sees it, and it's only within the West that we don't. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't seem to understand the extent of the disaster, and the loss of face, the loss of reputation. It's
Yeah,
in
this
some
is the
ways,
end. This is the end of the American empire. It really is. Like, I
yeah,
think we
it's
can
certainly the
say
beginning
it.
of the end. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I don't think it's all that far away. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make the argument that it's already over. I mean, we can't dictate and call the shots anymore. We have all this.
Well, it's a shrinking empire. It seems to be extending pretty much to, Europe, and then some islands in the South Pacific. And not much beyond that.
Right. Yeah, because we talk about this all the time, we can see it happening, and it's amazing to watch and see. But it's true that I think the vast majority of the people living in America just are completely oblivious. I edited a little clip from our last podcast on Monday, and it was just like, can America even wage a real war? World War III, and we talked about how you were saying that you don't really think we can. We're not able to. That got the most hate. Everybody's like, "Oh, America's number one." You have no idea. America's so much more powerful. All these other
Right.
countries, Russia, China, they're just backwards. And you wait till America starts spinning up. And it's like you don't understand. We can't spin up. we've been trying to spin up for a
Right.
couple of years, and it's just been utter failure. And people think like, oh well, before World War II started, America didn't have a huge military capacity, and look what happens. Like, yes, back then we built everything here. Though we
Right.
had
Yeah, actually,
factories, we
we
had.
were turning out ships like one ship a day.
Mm,
That was the old. That's kind of like China is now. But the old America did have this tremendous productive capacity. But this is not just like, okay, there's been, this is peacetime America and we can fire things up. No, the um, America has been hollowed out, over the course of the last few decades, and it's, in pre-World War II America, you had a lot of skilled workers. It was just that was a large percentage of the population had the experience, as welders and as had the various skills that are needed to operate these factories. Now where are you going to find these people? That's what
well,
they're
we got a
finding.
lot
They say
of
we can build some
lot of
factories.
queer. I would say we got a lot of queer study degree majors and psych majors,
Right.
and they, so yeah, it's true. I think that's a very good point. We don't, even if we had the factories, we don't even have the skilled labor to fill them up. It does take some expertise
Yeah, and
that
it
we
takes
just don't
time to
have
develop
anymore.
that, right, to teach people those skills. And maybe we can do it. Maybe we can turn around, but there's no signs of it happening now. Part of it is they just don't have the awareness. Like you know, when World War II broke out, there were people rushing to the recruitment offices, young men who wanted to sign up and fight, and the captains of industry, whatever, they all declared their loyalty, and um, there was a you know there was an outburst of patriotism, right? Of wartime patriotism. And I just don't see that happening now. Certainly not in, if Russia actually did start bombing Miami or whatever, it could happen. But that's not what's
Right.
happening. It's just that it's again, it's
But
something,
it's
it's an elite dream, and then you have, but the average people aren't really caught up in this and don't have any reason to make real sacrifices. So you have a lot of online warriors that are just sure that America is the absolute best, and is going to try to shout down anybody who says otherwise. But those aren't the people who are going
right.
to,
They're not going to go to the recruitment office.
yeah,
But
or sign up at the factories and start turning out artillery shells. It's
mm,
gonna,
yeah, I think people need to realize that, but that's what's happening in Russia. Russia, there's that sense of patriotism, people signing up for the military, that
yeah,
drive, just like in World War II, we had Rosie the Riveter and you can do it. That's the mentality that is
right,
gripping Russia right now. And
right,
that shouldn't be underestimated. It's very powerful when you get a whole nation that's behind a cause and that has that drive. It really boosts your economy and your ability to do things. You have a willing population. We don't have that here in the United States. Actually, we have one listener in Russia that reached out. He had his friend was had his friend's friend was injured in Sevastopol during that
uh-huh.
attack over the
Oh, really?
weekend, and
Yeah,
he registered and he signed up to volunteer to go fight the SMO after that happened.
yeah,
So it shows you an example of that's what happens. People see what happens to their people on their beach. You might know somebody that knows somebody, or you just see, I think a 2-year-old boy was killed on that beach. I'm a father of a 2-year-old boy. Just
yeah,
knowing that and thinking about that, seeing it will make you
yeah.
want to feel this duty that I need to
Right,
go and sign up and
right,
protect my family, my
right.
kids, and that's the feeling in Russia. So it's that they feel like they're fighting this moral war, and people here in America, for us, it's just something we see in the news, and we just pretend, yeah, we're number one. We spend more money on the military than anybody else. Oh, look at all of our advanced weapons. We can just do whatever we want. But nobody wants to really put their money where their mouth is, and when there's going to be a real fight.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, just
so
spend
yeah,
5 minutes
we're
in
just
the
playing with
trenches
fire.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we're doing
The-
this. And we know
right.
there's not popular support for this war, even if war does break out between Russia and the U.S. Like, do you think Americans will be running to the recruitment office? Because I think something that people should realize is Russia is always very careful and calculated. They say they're going to retaliate, but I know they're not going to do something like bomb a beach in Miami. You bombed
Right.
our beach, we'll bomb yours. They know that we can't give any excuse.
Right.
They can't give Americans any excuse to get riled up and get that sense of patriotism and have like a, post 9/11 event where everyone's
Right.
waving flags and signing up for the military. So they want to make sure that it's calculated and that we're not going to try to harm civilians, or do anything to start something big. But if you are a military service member, I would be worried for you. If you're deployed overseas, it's getting dangerous for you out there. And it's because of the United States, what we're doing here. If you want to be mad, don't be mad at Russia. Be mad at the fact that your government is endangering your life over there from its actions. That it's not helping secure the United States. You signed up to the military to protect America. This is not protecting America. This is putting America in danger, and it might get you killed. So it's really sad. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree.